Thank you for joining us for another episode of PROXUS Perspectives and Business Insights. I'm your host, Matt Roessler, Director of Business Development. As a human capital management technology provider, PROXUS has the good fortune to partner with many of the area's top professionals in employee benefits, human resources, and financial advising, as well as our area's top businesses and nonprofits. With a background in human resources management and consulting, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to spend time talking with these individuals to bring you impactful perspectives and business insights. Join us periodically as we spend a few minutes diving into different relevant topics. The current crisis is not only taking a financial toll on our client organizations, but is also placing an emotional strain on our business leaders as they struggle with decisions to keep their employees safe, continue compensation, and continue to serve their communities and clients. My guest today is a close PROXUS friend and colleague, Dennis Shrenk, Director of our compensation practice, who's going to talk with us about those decisions around employee pay. Dennis and I have worked together since he joined our team back in November of 2015, and over the years have supported clients large and small with their compensation questions and needs. Over his 15 years of experience, Dennis has worked in insurance, healthcare, and manufacturing industries, among many others while with us at PROXUS. As an expert in what is considered a specialized area of human resources, Dennis often is leveraged to conduct market rate analysis for hard-to-fill positions, design full salary range and grade structures, complete complex total compensation projects, and perform compliance reviews. Dennis's efforts are in support of organizations who have a focus on improving external competitiveness and better aligning pay with performance. So Dennis, thank you for joining us and spending a few minutes with us today.
Thank you, Matt. I'm real excited about this.
So Dennis, with the almost overnight shift to a majority work from home workforce, I know that our teams have been getting questions pretty much every day related to compliance issues around compensation and pay practices. So what are some of the things that employees should be considering at this point?
I think one of the biggest things to recognize is that it's a real shift for employers. There's a lot of employers that have never experimented with employees working from home, or they only let their salaried employees work from home, and maybe it was only a day or two a week. But now employers are faced with having both hourly and salaried employees working from home, and that's the extent of what they're solely working from home. And it becomes really important to recognize how to treat hourly employees during this work from home time, because it's very important that employers are making sure that they're tracking the time accurately. With hourly employees and salaried employees, and all of us are working from home, right, that work and home life balance is sort of getting blurred. So we're going to have more employees working off hours, maybe late at night, maybe in the weekends. And so employers must be sure that they're tracking that time and paying their hourly employees accurately, particularly when it comes to overtime pay. There are going to be some instances with employees now that they're not taking time on commute, they have a dedicated home office, they're just getting up out of bed, they're going right to work. They could be working more hours than they did when they were coming into the office. So it's important to make sure that you're tracking that time and making sure that any overtime is being paid appropriately.
And Dennis, those are all, really interesting points. I mean, I'm thinking about myself, right? So I'm getting up certainly earlier than normal and starting work before I would normally get into the office. But then there might be those days where I'm, taking a walk around the neighborhood at lunch or, halfway through the afternoon. And, the benefit here is that I'm an exempt employee, but if I were to be an hourly employee, all of those things, to your point, need to be taken into consideration, and the tracking of the actual time worked for compensation purposes, I think is the difficult part here, but certainly the critical part with hourly employees. You mentioned a couple times they're salaried exempt employees, right? So what are the differences between that class of employee and hourly when it comes to working from home?
With salaried employees, it's a lot easier, because with salaried employees, we're not tracking time. They're paid based on a set salary. So the way that you were paying them before when they were coming in the office is going to just continue now that they're at home. Again, salary, you're not tracking time. It's more based on the work product and what is produced. So in a sense, they can be an easier class of employees to pay and handle during this time.
How about things with, with furloughs? So I was speaking with a client the other day, and they've kind of moved to an A-B schedule, right? So A week you're on, B week you're off for salaried exempt individuals. And when we got a little bit into the conversation, I said, okay, well, that's okay so long as the work weeks are consistent. And she came back and said, oh, well, it's not a Monday through Friday. It could be the A week could be, Wednesday through Wednesday or Thursday through Thursday. How does that come into play with an exempt salaried employee?
With an exempt salaried employee, I mean, you really do have the ability to continue to pay them their salary, but you can change their schedule. If they're working Wednesday to Wednesday, or maybe a couple days a week, they're not doing any work at all. So I've known of some clients where they're sort of rotating during the course of a week, where a certain group of employees might be working Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then the other set are working Tuesday and Thursday, and the following week they switch. For hourly employees, it's important to track that time and pay them based on their hours worked. For salaried employees, you can just keep paying them their standard salary, and you can change their work weeks as needed to suit your business.
Very good. So, obviously we're all looking forward to the day when we can get back into the office, and timelines on that are maybe becoming a little bit clearer, or we're hoping they become clearer here in the next couple of weeks. But, between now and then, certainly we've seen, an unfortunate number of people laid off or facing furloughs like we just talked about. I've heard some stories of organizations that are laying people off and then bringing them back in, kind of a 1099 contractor type of relationship. What are your thoughts on that sort of practice?
It's very common now at this time. I've had clients that I've consulted with who have laid their employees off, and they brought them back as independent contractors. From the employer perspective, there is a lot of advantages to that, right? You're obviously, you don't have to pay benefits. You're not on the hook from a tax standpoint. There are advantages from a strict business standpoint to do that. The important thing is, though, to keep in mind is that you make sure that you are treating them truly as independent contractors and not as employees. So an independent contractor has to have a certain degree of autonomy with what they do in their job to be truly classified as an independent contractor. Bringing an employee back as an independent contractor into their exact same role, and if they are under, a fair bit of control by the employer and don't really have a lot of autonomy, you're going to jeopardize their independent contractor status. So in the eyes of the government, they would be, viewed as an employee. So it's really important to realize that this is something that businesses can do, but they can't do it for every single employee. It's more likely to be seen with salespeople, particularly outside salespeople, to bring them back as independent contractors than, let's say, someone in the accounting department, for instance.
Mm-hmm. And when you're seeing, or when you're, talking with clients who are considering making that move, Dennis, are they actually putting in place a contract with that individual or those individuals, or are they just kind of, flipping the switch and saying, okay, well, now we're going to pay you as a 1099, or do you see them going down the road of actually, developing that contract from what was otherwise, an offer letter before this crisis?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Now, they should develop contracts with that individual. They should lay them off from their current position. You're terminating that employment relationship, and then developing a contract under which that they can operate as a 1099 independent contractor.
Okay, all right, good. What else, Dennis, are you hearing from your contacts? I mean, anything that you think would be valuable to share with our listeners?
One of the things that comes up with some of my clients, and these aren't necessarily easy conversations, but it's around salaried employees and reducing their salary, at least during the time of this crisis, and what employers, what options do they have to do that? And again, with salaried employees, you do have a little bit of degree of flexibility where you can reduce salary if needed. The important thing to keep in mind is that you cannot go below the salary basis minimum, the minimum salary to ensure their exemption status. So they still must at least receive $684 a week or $35,568 a year to maintain their status as an exempt employee.
Okay, that's a great point. So Dennis, we're trying to keep these relatively brief so our listeners can jump in and jump out here between work at their home offices. So want to thank you for taking a couple of minutes, to talk with us today. I know as someone who would rather work from the office, you're itching and ready to get back up to Fort Washington here as soon as possible. Certainly with the right care and kind of community efforts here, we'll hopefully be there soon. But for anyone that might be listening and would like additional information or guidance around compensation practices, either now related to COVID-19 or certainly later this year, feel free to reach out to me. Contact information is there on the screen, and we'll be sure to get you in touch with Dennis. Thanks again, and everybody stay well.
Okay, thanks so much, Matt.